Folks, the recommendation for a total ban on corporal punishment was made by the National Violence Prevention Commission, which had been tasked to thoroughly review all current public and private violence prevention programs and governmental strategies. The children's advocate, Diahann Gordon-Harrison, has been a supporter of the proposed ban, and she joins us now. Good morning, Mrs. Gordon-Harrison. How are you?
Good morning, Neville. Good morning, Delia. I'm well, thank you. Good to be with you.
Fantastic to have you. What is corporal punishment?
All right. So first of all, corporal punishment is recognized globally in terms of the definition as a form of violence against children. Now, normally when we think violence, we think shooting, we think, bursting of the head or breaking of an arm. But corporal punishment is in fact recognized by the United Nations and a number of other organizations globally as being a part of what is chronic violence that is practiced against children. Now, if you look at some of the acts that qualify as corporal punishment, it may surprise you. So it's not just the extreme beatings of a child, but it includes any beating, any slapping, however mild, any pinching, any kind of physical contact with the child, however mild, is considered corporal punishment and is considered an act of violence.
Yeah, before I started the interview, I asked Delia the question, and I says, when you say corporal punishment, do you mean that even your parents can hit you? Is that also what you're talking about? This is not just about principals and teachers beating children. You're talking about
absolutely.
Even at home?
Legally and based on the international conventions that we have ascribed to, that's exactly what we're talking about. The learning as well, which would have guided a lot of what the Alliance has in fact recommended, shows longitudinal studies all across the world that document the harm that corporal punishment is having on children. And really, even if it's not physical harm, as in the physical injuries, there is great concern that there are psychological issues and traumatic baggage that children who are exposed to corporal punishment of any sort in fact, carry for very long periods into their adult lives. And so there is a global call, if you will, that we need to relook at how we engage with children at school, but also in the home. If you look at Jamaica's legislative progress in this area, you'll notice that we already have a partial ban on corporal punishment. For example, corporal punishment is not permitted in any juvenile correctional or remand facility. So in juvenile prisons or holding areas, corporal punishment is not allowed. Also in children's homes and places of safety, corporal punishment is illegal. And the law also says that in early childhood institutions, and some persons apply a generous interpretation to that because of course the early childhood years end when you hit 8 years old. So any kind of institution that caters to children 8 and below, corporal punishment is already illegal in Jamaica, according to the Child Care and Protection Act. But what is now being put on the table is a ban in all settings, including the home.
One of the challenges, Diahann, is people say, oh, but that's what Jamaican parents know. You know, when you look at the figures, that's how they punish children. And so if you remove corporal punishment, what are we, or how are we going to empower parents with other forms of discipline and other ways in which they can engage their children?
Spot on, Delia. And that in fact takes me to the other fundamental point that I wanted to make. So while it is important that we join the call and we push for the absence of violent kind of interaction with children, including corporal punishment, I think that hand in hand with that must be a very robust and comprehensive public education program and strategies that are executed at the community level that will give parents workable options, alternatives that will make them feel as if they still have the responsibility, which they do, to guide and discipline their children. So for me, this call for the ban has to be a parallel to what's happening at the community level. What are the issues that you're facing in your home with your child? And what are some workable alternatives that we can look at? So we talk about, for example, positive discipline. No, I pause on that because many Jamaicans, and in fact, many people in the region, think that corporal punishment is the only form of discipline. But there are so many different ways to connect with your child and to teach them lessons that they will not forget very soon and help them understand the responsibility of modifying their behavior. And so those are some of the discussions that we need to be having. For example, the deprivation of certain privileges. You want to go to the high school barbecue, you want to hang with your friends. Well, this is what is going to happen because you did so and so. You have been violent, you have broken off the leg of a chair in your rage. Here is the nail, here is the leg. You are now going to repair that chair, however long it takes. So using strategies that make it connect in the brain as to why the behavior is offensive, and also communicating at the same way a sense of restorative responsibility that is going to be placed on the child. And there's a whole pack of different solutions that I think if we get to the brass tacks at the community level and help parents to understand that this is not necessarily a new dialogue, but it's a dialogue that's being amplified and we want them to be a part of that solution, we will give them the tools to really effectively manage what's happening in their homes.
Yep. In preparing for this, Mrs. Gordon Harrison, I'm seeing numbers here. 76% of Jamaican children, 57%, But I picked out this one. It says 7 out of every 10 children experience psychological aggression as a form of child discipline. What does psychological aggression mean in this case?
All right. So when you are belittling the child, you are talking to the child about the fact that they're behaving in such and such a way because they're no better than a dog or a monkey. Or you are talking to the child about little things that may have happened in the past that you now hold up and let it go on them in the heat of the moment. So, like when you have somebody up for a long time and you say nothing and you finally get the chance to unleash it, that's a form of psychological aggression, which not only comes across because of the negative words and how the words are being said, but when it lands on that child and that child receives it, it causes the child to think, I'm not worthy. My self-value is basically not. And this is why it is okay for mommy or daddy or grandma or auntie or my godmother to speak to me in this way. So this is a part of the psychological baggage now that when the child internalizes it, it causes all sorts of undervaluing feelings that will have ripple effect. And one of them I'll mention very quickly. When you have, for example, a girl in a facility or in a home, her own home, that feels less than, it makes it easier for her to gravitate towards any foolishness that she hears on the street. This is why, for example, we will have girls who are, and these are real situations, leaving school to go to a tattoo shop downtown to get a tattoo in exchange for sex, because the value that they place on self is so eroded because of the negativity that comes at them within their spaces where they should be cared for and where they should be nurtured.
All right, important discussion. Thank you so much, ma'am, for joining us this morning. God bless you.
Can I just do a quick plug? So many may not know, but April 30 is being celebrated as the International Day to End Corporal Punishment, in keeping with the global alliance's call that we need to eradicate all forms of violence against children by 2030. So we have 6 years, so Jamaica is playing catch up. And so we will see how we galvanize our efforts towards this particular goal, which is very ambitious.
God bless you and your family, ma'am. Thanks for speaking with us.
Thanks for having me.
Children's Advocate, Mrs. Diahann Gordon Harrison. Just before we go for the break, it is something Daly and I, we've said this a couple of times, that this thing about sticks and stones can break your bones, which is true, but words can't harm you. That's not true. Sometimes I think words do more harm than a little slap or a lick. So please, I remember my mom used to tell me that I didn't know at the time, but now I kind of understand that, no, words can harm you in a big way, in a very big way. All right, we're going to go for a break. We'll soon come. More on Smile when we come back. Stay with us, please.